Welcome back everyone to another video. It looks like the CMA has finally decided to come out and show their grisly teeth a little bit and try to get things, put a few more roadblocks in the way for Xbox. Clearly they have really no defense and they're now worried that the CATribunal, which is within their grounds to completely reject their block and actually, as we found out, overturn their decision and pass it. The CATribunal can actually make this decision. They don't have to listen to what the CMA's rulings are. They don't even have to send it back to the CMA to get remedies if the reason for them blocking is unjustified and has no legal bearings, which for the most part it really doesn't. And as we've seen over the past week with the FTC slowly and truly losing their grip on their case, the CMA decided that since that looked like a losing battle and they could no longer rely on the FTC, they had to take matters into their own hands. And well, they well and truly tried that, but much to their dismay, it really didn't go the way they'd hoped. So let's get into it. But first, if you've made it this far, if you are enjoying the content, do consider leaving a like. We're almost at 1,500 subs. Let's get that to 2,000. Would be amazing. Thanks so much. Now on to the video. And as you can see here, we've got this article by Florian Mueller. Well, tweet. I'm going to call it an article because it pretty much is an article at this point. You can do anything you want on Twitter. The text limitations are gone. And if you look at that, that's an article, right? That's a mini article. Anyway, as you can see here, the UK government, Rishi Sunak, Jeremy Hunt, told the CMA, even in writing, that they must make sure the UK is open for business and regulatory delays don't adversely affect companies, but the CMA still wants the UK to look like it's closed for business. That's not the case. They are actually doing some good work, but when it comes to the actual Xbox and Activision deal, they are just completely and utterly ballsing it up. Now, this is the latest situation we have right here. The CMA realizes that its only ally against Microsoft Activision, the FTC, is losing here in San Francisco, and it took a pounding, right? And the only thing that the Judge Corley said that they won on was the cloud, and that was referring to the 10-year contracts. So they kind of got what they wanted by forcing Microsoft's hand to offer a 10-year contract to leave those games on every platform, which is, what the FTC should be doing. Making sure that those games remain on the platforms for consumers, not protecting Sony. That's why they brought a surprise motion, unanimously rejected by the tribunal. That is not just a normal type of procedural gamesmanship, but shows that the CMA's strategy is one of justice delayed is justice denied. But there's a script at the bottom, and I'm going to get to that in a bit, where they actually detailed their decision. But let's continue reading. But essentially, the CMA really tried to overplay their hand here, and they realized quite early on that, number one, their case might actually get thrown out now, and number two, the CATribunal not only might throw their case out, but turn the verdict 180. Now, this naturally would be extremely bad for both the FTC and the CMA. Now, there are other implications as to why I'm saying this, and I will get into that in a little bit, but first let's continue with the article. There still are people at the CMA who irresponsibly seek to kill the transaction in order to duck a ruling on the merits, which is going to be a bloodbath. The CMA will lose on multiple grounds of appeal in all likelihood. Again, that's his opinion. So what did the agency do? Yesterday, Wednesday, the 28th of June, they asked the CATribunal to push back the appellate hearing from the current July 28th, which was agreed upon, by the way, by everyone at the hearing start date, to a new date in early October, which is the one the CMA originally wanted, because they wanted to push it out as far as possible so they could mount as much of a defense as they possibly could, and also get Microsoft to pay that $3 billion fine in hopes that Microsoft will just drop the deal entirely and not pursue it anymore. The reason? Just some excuses about how difficult it allegedly was for them to find counsel. And if you remember back at the actual CMC trial, this was actually raised, and Activision's counsel did turn around and say there is a bar school. They can go there. There's plenty of capable people that can pick this up, get onboarded, and come over to do the case. I'm guessing the problem the CMA are having right now is that no one is crazy enough to pick this case up, knowing that the chances of them losing is extremely high. No one wants to touch this with a barge pole. So now the CMA has a real problem because they're struggling to find a counsel crazy enough to actually pick this up. All that the CMA wants is to create a situation where Microsoft and Activision may not be able to extend the merger agreement by a period sufficient to wait for the CAT's appellate decision. And that's the thing. Now, the date for Activision and Microsoft is the 18th of, I think it's the 19th of July. Now, that's the cutoff date. But with the date going to the 28th of July, that's been extended till this duration. So there's no actual fee for Microsoft to pay, but it will kick in after this actual date if they pass it or fail it. So what they're trying to do is to push it past that period so Microsoft can pay that $3 billion. The court scheduled the appellate hearing for late July and early August in order to be able to adjudicate the matter before October, where things would just spiral, too far away. And of course, the companies would have to pay a lot of money and the end date is there. They're trying to be fair to both sides. The court also made it clear that from October on, it would be much harder to hand down a swift decision. So this is why they want to get through as quickly as possible. The three-member panel under the CATribunal's president, Mr. Justice Marcus Smith, has not only denied the motion, but also made it pretty clear that the CMA's attitude is unacceptable. Now that's pretty big, right? The decision notes that the CMA absolutely knew that the April 26th merger block was going to be appealed. Now, the CMA denied assuming or knowing that Microsoft was going to appeal, even though they sent them correspondence to say that they're appealing. They said it publicly on social media, on all social channels, everywhere that was anywhere knew that Microsoft was going to appeal this decision. Brad Smith announced it the same day that they were going to appeal the decision, yet the CMA is still arguing that they had no idea, which is, quite honestly, not only insulting to Microsoft, but it's also insulting to the judge, because they're basically now looking at Marcus Smith, telling him he's an idiot, and that he's basically a fool's errand. So we're just going to feed you a bunch of crap, and you're just going to accept it because you're dumb. It's really insulting how the CMA is actually treating a judge. It's disrespectful to the highest degree. Like, what are they even thinking is going to come out of this? The CMA has been pushing for a delay ever since the appeal started. This was its last attempt and it failed miserably. And if they're pushing for a delay this hard, that can only mean one thing, folks, that they have no defense. They have no case. Because if they had a case that was ironclad, if they had that smoking gun, they would be there today to say, we are ready. But they don't have anything. They have nothing, and they know that they have nothing. And the cloud argument is not going to stand, especially after the EC ruling. So they are really scrambling now to find anything that can go their way to try and get this thing delayed, so they can try to, as they did last time in the 4 weeks, and as I keep saying, throwing everything at the kitchen sink at the wall in hopes that something will stick to give them an advantage. But right now, they have no smoking gun, and without that smoking gun, they are in trouble. One can read between the lines of the CAT decision that the panel totally figured out the CMA's motivation and finds it appalling. The CAT is trying its best to keep the UK open for business, but some are trying to close it. And this here is where they actually made their statement, right? This is what they actually said. We consider that the CMA has not paid sufficient heed to the true public interest in this case, which is the swift resolution of Microsoft's notice. The CMA has chosen to revisit a matter already decided, namely an end July, early August hearing and not an October hearing, when there has been no material change of circumstance. Furthermore, the CMA has made this application indefensibly late with no explanation. And there you have it. The CATribunal gave a short shrift to the CMA's irresponsible motion, a motion that is the next best thing to an admission of having made a huge mistake in April. Essentially what the CMA here said, please sir, can I have some more? Can I have some more delays? Because please sir, I don't have a defense and I really need some more time to try and find some dirt so I can throw it at Microsoft, sir. I mean, the CMA made a mistake. The FTC made a mistake. Now, the FTC actually probably would have had a decent case had they been focusing on the actual consumer, but instead they chose to protect Sony, and that actually worked against them. In fact, I would go as far as saying that the FTC was supporting Microsoft more than they were actually supporting the FTC themselves, which is crazy. But maybe that was maybe aim all along. That said, this thing is still going ahead at the end of June, at the end of July. Now, why did I say at the beginning that this was actually a bad thing? So currently right now the FTC and the CMA do important work. It's not just this Microsoft deal that they're doing. They regulate all sorts of things, from fuel prices to you name it, right? Now, if they get sidestepped in this and they both lose heavily on this is going to be really bad for the regulators, because it will just weaken their authority completely. They will have, I mean, this will be like a precedent case. This will basically make it so all the other companies out there can railroad them and just walk all over them, and they will lose all sense of authority. The smartest thing to do right now is for the CMA and the FTC to sit down and discuss remedies, push it over the line so the FTC and the CMA can turn around and say, we've spoken to Microsoft and Activision, we've got our remedies in place, they've decided to bend the knee, everyone is happy. In the FTC case, that's going to be a little more difficult, because I do believe Microsoft now are so confident that they've won, they probably won't listen to the FTC. But in the case of the CMA, the trial hasn't started. The CMA still has a chance to reverse this and actually, save credibility and, the integrity of their institution. But if this goes to court and they get wiped out clean, the next company that comes to buy something or a merger, like the say Nvidia or Sony or anyone else, they are just going to walk all over the CMA as if they don't exist. Their level of integrity, their reputation will be in ruins, and that is bad for the world, regulation service. As much as some of you might not like to hear it, these institutions exist for a reason, and that's to safeguard our protection. But they're doing a really bad job here. And they're going about it for all the wrong reasons. And they just need to accept that they've lost. Unless a miracle happens, of course, they can still rely on that miracle. And give those remedies to Microsoft and say, look, we've sat down with Microsoft and they have agreed to our terms. And now that they've agreed to our terms, we can accept their decision and we will overturn the block to a pass. But it's only because they agreed to our terms. And this is really important, because it's not just going to affect this case, it's going to affect a lot of cases. And I don't understand what the CMA is doing, or the FTC for that matter. They're taking this way too far. But there you have it. The CMA tried to delay the case in hopes to find a better excuse, find a better reason, just find something that they could combat, because they don't have a smoking gun. This now proves that they do not have a smoking gun. They are not prepared for that case, and the chances of them coming out on top is extremely unlikely. So if the FTC's preliminary injunction actually, goes Microsoft's way, which is what is expected, the CMA is going to be a foregone conclusion based on this. And that's great for Xbox users, great for Microsoft, really bad for the regulators, especially the FTC and the CMA. And there will be repercussions for this going forward on a global scale. And that's what I'm afraid of. That is what I am ultimately afraid of. But it's a making of their own, right? They're making this happen. They are doing it to themselves. And it's sad. It's really sad. But that's it, folks. That's the end of the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It does take quite a bit of time to make these videos, and I really hope you enjoy them. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks so much for watching, and until then, remain legend.